Hey everyone, welcome to the Dare to Care podcast, the podcast where we talk about the inner workings of ministry here at Inspire Family Fellowship and the community stories within the church. If you have comments, stories, or questions about Inspire or the Dare to Care ministries at any point during our podcast today, feel free to send those questions to me at amy@inspirefamily.org. We also invite you to join us in person at Inspire any Sunday or Wednesday that you're able. 523 North 21st Street, Bismarck, North Dakota. Our Sunday services are at 9:15 and 10:45, and Wednesday nights start with a meal at 5, classes for all ages at 6, and our family service at 7. My name is Amy Langang. I'm the Dare to Care coordinator here at Inspire, and today I'm joined with Pastor Rob and our special guest, Kathy Schneider. Hey,
Welcome,
Kathy.
Thank you.
You know, I haven't been on one of these podcasts for a few weeks now, and I just want to go on record saying, Amy, you're getting better at this.
Thanks.
You know?
Appreciate that.
There was a moment where you looked at me and you're like, oh no, I'm going to mess this up.
Well,
and you
I
held
could
it
feel
together.
your eyes staring at me.
And I try very intentionally to look away from her because I know
appreciate that.
she doesn't like it when I stare at her while she's reading. But way to go.
Thanks.
You know, I don't care what Ty says about you. I think you're getting better at this job.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, that's good.
Thanks.
I am so delighted to be here with one of my dearest friends. One of the things I judge people on is just my gut reaction when I see them. And every time you walk around a corner and I see you, I almost always just like jump up and down like, it's Kathy. It's like I just want to come over and I'll just wait because you're always talking to somebody. It's like I feel like I'm waiting in line to visit Santa Claus or something. Like this is just this person who brings me so much joy and so much happiness. And I'm so glad that you're here and you're going to share
That's just warming my heart.
Well, yeah, I don't know when we first met, but my first connection in my head to you was through your daughter, Sue. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about this today on the way here. Sue and I were friends in high school, but not real tight. We didn't hang out a lot, but we were both on the newspaper staff.
Okay.
And that staff was a bunch of like wild and crazy, creative, artistic journalists. And I was the editor and Sue was the business manager, I think. And so both of us like had a job to do that involved charts and numbers and there were many times when I would look at her like in desperation, like what is wrong with these people? And I still can see her in my head in that classroom. She would look at me and be like, it's okay. It's okay. They're nuts.
And she, only came here as a junior in high school.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it was all new to her, a new school, and it was quite a transition. And so she talked very good about you all the time,
Well,
too.
I'm glad. And I think every now and then she looked at me in panic and I would go, it's okay. We're the normal ones. These other people are insane. But and so then I love seeing her. Most Christmases she's back and maybe we'll catch her on Easter or some special occasion. So anyway, enough about Sue. Let's get to you. That rhymed. Ernie's trying to rub off on me.
Yes,
yeah.
really.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where does your story begin?
My story begins south of Mandan.
Okay.
I was born in Mandan. My dad was in Korea serving during the Korean conflict. Mm-hmm. And my mother was living at home with her parents and 5 siblings and always had just this tight relationship. I was probably 16 months when my dad came home.
Okay.
And my uncle, who is 10 years older than me, said to me just recently, like in the last 5 years, he said, your mother went to town and she was gone for a week and then she came home and had a baby. And he said, no one said anything, but we thought you were ours. And so when my dad came and took me, he said, we stood on and I know that old house so well. He said, we stood on the steps and we cried because he took our baby.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I wasn't particularly happy with him either. I was pretty happy with the home I had.
Yeah,
and I was pretty spoiled, I would imagine. But so
did your mom go with you also?
she did.
Okay.
She did.
Okay.
My dad was pretty insistent on that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
She was the hired man on their farm. So, yes.
Interesting.
And I lived this life of, I was pretty independent. And they did chores, and I wandered around. And I think today people would be mortified. These 2 school teachers found me when I was like 3 years old walking down the highway with my dog. And they brought me home. And I didn't feel like, that was just the way it was.
Right, yeah.
But when I was young, my mother instilled this seed in me that God was with me all the time. And she would say these things to me. And honestly, I never felt alone.
Really?
I'd be out walking and I'd be talking, and I felt like I knew God. I knew Jesus. We moved to town. My dad didn't own the land, and the land was sold, and so he had a big auction. We moved to Mandan, and I went to St. Joe's, and that was an experience. I'd been to a country school the year before.
Sure.
So it was kind of, you couldn't play with the boys on the playground, and I thought that was the dumbest thing ever. I'd played with boys before on the playground. That was nothing.
Yeah.
So the sisters struggled with me.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I was a little...
That's fascinating. Yeah, it's not, it's interesting as we do all these different podcasts to hear people's experience through their parents and how so much of their faith gets planted in those early years. And so was that like growing up, your mom talked about it? Were you active in churches, or what was that like?
When we still lived in Mandan, we moved there to Edgeley when I was 8. But I received my first communion in Mandan, and we lived a block east of the St. Joe's.
Okay.
And so my mother set us out in the backyard with my little white gown and veil, and she knelt down in front of me and she said, "This is the most important day of your life." And I always remembered that.
Wow.
Always remembered that. I'm very different than my mother, but always I pray that I have my mother's heart. She just very wise and very kind all the way through her life.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
So we moved to Edgeley, which was, I was in the third or fourth grade.
Okay.
And, a little rural community, and we got adopted by 2 large German families, which was really, really great. Mm-hmm. And, spent our time there because I have a very large family here.
Sure.
I have cousins that belong to this church, and which makes my heart just...
We pretty much assume when we meet someone that they're related to you. Like
well, there are a lot.
Yeah. Hi, welcome. How are you related to Kathy? Like, oh, well, we're second cousins on her mom's side. It's like, yeah.
I know. I'm reading through my genealogy books, and I'm finding, oh, my goodness, your grandpa and my grandma were sister and brother to a friend of mine.
Oh my gosh.
It's like, whoa.
That's crazy, yeah.
So I grew up there. My parents were very involved in the church. And it was a different time. I was Catholic. It was a very different time in the Catholic Church. Very opening the doors and welcoming and growing in community, being concerned about the members, versus the rules as much at that time. And I had a great church life. I belonged to a youth group, went on youth retreats, youth conventions. It was really, really good.
Well, that's awesome.
I graduated from high school, and I had a scholarship to attend Carroll College in Helena, Montana. Okay. And I worked for the priest, who was like an uncle to me, and he had gotten me this scholarship because truly I have no idea that I could have gotten one otherwise. And that summer I became pregnant. And I often think it was just kind of world-changing because I didn't go to college. Instead, I got married. I had my first son when I just turned 18 the year after I graduated.
Okay.
So I was pretty young.
Yeah, for sure.
I had him when I was 18. And I always say he's older than I am now.
Yeah.
Because I look at him and think, whoa, I can't be that old.
So I'm curious, and if this is personal, you don't have to answer, but how did your family receive that news?
I began on a spiritual journey in my early 30s, and I always say it began. My brother, we did a family intervention, and my brother ended up in treatment. And the person who got the most out of that treatment program was me.
Oh.
We went to Fargo once a week, and I was 32 years old, and I could hardly believe the questions they were asking me. I had 5 children, and I felt like I should know all this, and I didn't. And it began a journey of kind of self-awareness and understanding. And at the same time, I met this woman who God dropped into Valley City, North Dakota. she was at the grocery store wearing a long muumuu, and she was a really good-sized woman, and this turban on her head, and she was digging in the cucumbers, and I thought, man, I'd like to know that woman and how she got here.
Yeah.
Well, it was during the season of Lent, and everywhere I went, to every retreat, every church event, she was there. And I did meet her. And that became a spiritual journey. She was my spiritual mentor. And she was from Pennsylvania, had a really wealthy family who was very upset with her that she had chosen to become a Jesus person, a Jesus free, truly.
And were you still in the Catholic Church at this point?
I was.
And so
I
she was
was.
part of that too? And
No, she wasn't. But she would come to our retreats.
Okay.
And then she began to have a Bible study class.
Okay.
There were 7 Catholic women around a table that, none of us had ever read the Bible.
Yeah.
And we started in Isaiah, in the King James Version, and it was magnificent. But more than that, she would spend her mornings reading scripture and praying, and she would call me. And she would say, she'd have scripture for me, but she'd have a message.
Yeah.
And she always told me, you are God's little ray of sunshine in a box.
I can attest to that.
Yep.
But I would think, how would God even care? He doesn't even know me. But she would have messages like, I think God. So toward the end of my marriage, things were really, really getting difficult. But she said, Kathy, I think God is calling you out of the Catholic Church. And I said, no, I think he's just calling my heart out, but I'll still be a part. And when I married Mike, which was quite a while later,
Yep.
and all the way through the process with Patsy, was my spiritual director,
Yeah.
she also said, I don't think Mike is the right person for you. And she said, I'm very prayerful about this. And so Mike went to Grand Forks for a meeting, and on his way home, he stopped to see her and meet her and talk to her.
Really? Wow.
And she said, I think I've changed my mind.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So your mom planted the seeds of faith. It sounds like your friend Patsy helped them to grow and nurtured them. And then when did Mike get into the picture, or how did that come around?
Mike and I were friends.
Okay.
And so our kids did things together. His 2 boys are in between my youngest 2 girls.
Okay.
Okay.
And, when you are separated or single, a lot of times you get together and do stuff. And I had met Mike in a political, his father ran for political office, and I
Okay.
had met him then. And so I knew him. And my mother once said to me, I think you really like him. And I said, I do not. He's just a friend.
Oh, that's awesome. How do parents know that?
I know.
And if we could only pick our spouses or the spouses of our children, I think that everyone would
Well,
be
I
happier.
think she knew. After my divorce, it was a very, very sad and hard time. I think if anyone, people call me and say, especially years ago, they would call and say, talk me through this. And I said, you know what? It's just really awful.
Yeah.
And if anyone tells you it's not, they're not dealing with it. And I said, you know what? One of my closest friends would come and pat me on the back and listen to me for a while. And then she'd say, I got to go. I'm going golfing. And I would think, how can you do that to me? I'm sitting home here alone. I'm doing nothing. But the truth is, you just really have to walk through it yourself.
Yeah.
And, there's the kids, and there's just a whole lot of things that, and then there's a small town that's very tightly knit, and that was very difficult.
Oh, I'm sure.
Very difficult.
Yeah, I tell people, not that that happens a lot, but people who are struggling in their marriage is part of the pastoral role. We work with people all the time, and I always tell them from the get-go, divorce always looks easier from this side. Once you cross that line, man, it's not easier on the other side of the fence, but it's hard. And yet God is there, and He's graceful, and He uses those things to grow us and to.
And I prayed.
us.
I
Yeah.
prayed through the end of it. I prayed for release. We had a really amazing counselor, and I think she knew where we were headed long before I was willing to, even
Sure.
accept it.
Yeah.
And so I felt like it was probably done in the best way possible, which was still a minus way. The pain is something that, I would wake up at 3 a.m. I had 4 kids at home yet at that time and think about my finances and how I was going to make it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that my spiritual advisor had taught me was present day living. And that's what got me through. I'd pull myself back in and think, I'll worry about that later. And so that was really helpful through that. Not that I wasn't awake a lot, but it wasn't like it consumed me in my days. And so I got through it. Mike would call me and want to know how to make something for supper for his kids.
Oh,
and I mean, those were really the good old days. Now I wouldn't let him in the kitchen cooking. I won't say his name, excuse me. That one guy that lives with me.
Yeah, okay, yeah. He doesn't belong in the kitchen. Yeah,
yes, he does dishes, and he's really number one at that.
Oh, that's amazing.
So, yes.
Yeah.
Everyone has their role, right?
Right.
So,
So you're still in Valley City.
At this point, right? Yep.
So when did you end up in Bismarck?
So Mike and I got married.
Okay.
Absolutely phenomenal. He had proposed, and 3 weeks later I got gravely ill and was in the hospital for a month and almost died.
Oh, man.
And for 6 months, I just changed doctors, and he's the first doctor that's ever asked me about what is this in my chart. And Mike was just a phenomenal. He would drive down to see me. I was in Fargo every night after work, and summers were really late. And when I came through all of that, we got married the following May. I worked at the hospital, and I lived a block away, and I had to send him home at night. I'd say, you've got to leave, because people would see his car there, and they'd slip notes under the CEO's door. And so I said, you need to go home. And so we just decided, no, we'll get married. And we lived in Valley City for 3 years, and it was really difficult. And then God opened this door to Bismarck. That was just phenomenal. Mike's company, Mike went back to school and got his master's degree.
Okay.
And his company thought, he's leaving. He's going somewhere else. And at that time, he was like the face of KLJ. He was the troubleshooter. The engineers don't like to talk.
Yeah.
And Mike is really good at that and good at visiting. And
Mm-hmm.
he would be the one going out and settling these huge rifts between a city and the residents that lived in the city.
Mm-hmm.
And so they wanted him in Bismarck because they thought he was leaving the company.
Okay.
And they created a job for him, and we really prayed about it, and we talked with significant people and getting their input on it. And my parents were really in favor of it because they really wanted to come back, and they were living in Jamestown at the time.
Yeah.
And so we took the job. We had Suzanne as going into her junior year and Joanna into her 8th. And I will tell you that was the hardest part of the move.
Moving them right in that. Yeah.
At those ages.
Yes. And it I sometimes think, wow, did I do the best, for them? But I think, you have to look at the whole unit, and I feel we made the right choice.
Yeah.
And then we went to a church. We went church shopping, and we went to a church that had a big wooden arch over the door that said, "Sinners welcome." And I knew we were home.
Oh, that's amazing.
We just knew.
Yeah.
And that experience changed our life.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. Was that charity?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was charity.
Yeah.
And, Mike was, he was the president of his church board. And he often laughed and said, we hired a pastor, and he was the president.
Yeah.
We never said a prayer once during the meetings, not before, and that's fairly common.
Yeah.
And so even though Mike was, he belonged to the Christian club, he will be the first to say his relationship with Jesus started after we were at charity.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, that's what it is, that God calls you and puts you where you need to be. And just last night, we talked about at Ignite daily bread. What's daily bread? Well, it's what you need. Maybe in your case, it was working through a job and a family and all of these things to finally bring Mike, in this case, exactly what he needed to ignite that faith that probably was there, but maybe tucked away, and maybe even something he was protecting for a while, but to find a place where he was welcomed and that faith could come alive is great. And then I think your kids were involved in those activities too.
They were very much so.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I'm so glad to hear that.
And so there is certainly when we discuss God and Jesus and those things around our table at holidays, there isn't anyone who is not a believer.
Oh, amazing.
And who's not seen the.
Yeah, what a
the fruits
blessing.
of that. It is a blessing.
Yeah, I'm going back to last night again. We had worship at Ignite, and I sit in the corner and get ready to preach and stuff like that. But you look up and I see my son and his friends, and they are just they are in it. They are worshiping, and it's like, how did I get here? Like how God has just provided this community, this family, this relationship, and we see it spinning to the next generation, and it's so fun to watch these kids now start to take ownership of it. I think our podcast, the week that we're recording this, I don't know if this is going to be on next week or whatever, but it was a senior in high school who was talking about how she loves leading, and she's talking to these younger kids and encouraging them to take over when she goes off to college, and
they inspire.
They do.
When I'm there on Sunday and I see all these young people in the front, up front, it just warms my heart, and it just gives me encouragement.
Yeah, God is doing something with this next generation.
Oh, I know.
He's bringing them to life, and it's so fun to get to watch and see and just know. I think we get worried about protecting what we have, and yet God has provided what we have, and He's going to provide for the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. So it's just so encouraging to hear that. And so now, as you are seeing your family grow and spread and come to faith, and that just has to be such a blessing to you as grandma now at these services.
So one of the things Mike and I always did was connect the dots. We would go back, to when we met and when we married and when we went through my illness and how we could see the hand of God on all those things. And really when we moved to Bismarck, because we had some amazing things happen that we knew were God things.
Yeah.
That just, went into kind of like blocks, Lego blocks. They fit together and we had no idea what it was going to form. And I think I have loved my kids when they were little. I loved them when they were, all in school. I loved them when they were in college, but honestly, I love them today as adults. I love to see what they do in their lives, and they're just such good people.
Yeah.
And I just warms my heart. I wish we all lived closer. I wish we lived during COVID. Suzanne said, I think we should get a commune and all live together in a bunker.
Yeah.
And I sometimes think, I'm really ready for that right now.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, man. It's so good to hear your stories. And I've heard parts of these stories before just because we've been friends for years now. It's good to hear it all put together in one narrative. And something I always think is interesting on these podcasts is people tend to feel and see God working in some of the hardest times of their life. You talk about your sickness that you and Mike went through when you were engaged. You talked about your divorce. Would you say, and you've also talked about the blessings, but I think of January, February, these dark, cold months can be really hard for a lot of people. And I'm just curious, what would you say to someone who's maybe going through a difficult time right now? How has God carried you through those times? And maybe you could give them a little encouragement or...
Well, I think one of the things that I always remember is being grateful. What am I grateful for today? And really think about that. And I have a book that I read out of. I'm in so many Jesus Speaking. I've read it so many times. So on each page, I've got things circled and highlighted from different years that I went through it.
Sure.
But I am always amazed at how it touches me where I'm at today. And it has 3 Bible verses in it at the end. And, that just is really helpful. And I think if you're not a Bible reader, and because really once you get into the Bible, and people would say, oh, it's so meaningful, and but it wasn't right away.
Yeah.
I think today I can pick up the Bible and it's like, oh, this is really touches me. But the other thing we can do when we're feeling bad is we can type in Bible verse for sadness, Bible verse for loneliness, and it'll pull something up for us.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I don't know where to go, and I want God's direction.
Yeah.
And I do feel this is the owner's manual.
Yeah.
So, if you come over and you're going to use my snowblower and we need to look something up, we look at the manual.
Right.
And that's, I think, to say that we've gotten to a point where we don't need to look at the owner's manual in our life is really part of the sadness. It's depending on someone else. The other thing that I like to do, I like to think about the homeless woman that walks around Bismarck with all her stuff covering her face and hands, and especially in this past few weeks, and sits on a bench and has a cart, with all her belongings. And I like to sometimes visualize her. I have things in my car for her. She's not asking for anything, and she's not real good about receiving things. But, I made soup for her one of those days, and I went driving around trying to find her in a mug that would stay warm. And that takes my mind off me.
Sure.
And whatever I might be struggling with for the moment.
Yeah. Well, and you've now started a topic, and we're out of time, but we'll have to have you back sometime, because I know you and Mike have done so much work in our community between food pantries and homeless shelters and all those things. And I think that would be something really worth talking about down the road. But I just want to, before we close it up, I just want to thank you for what a blessing you've been to me in my life and my brother. He's not here today, but we could probably do another whole podcast of Kathy and Tim adventures.
Stories.
Yeah. And I would like to hear those. Maybe they're the outtakes or something like that. But both you and Mike and your kids when they're here, and you are just such a blessing. And I think the other thing that people don't necessarily know about you is how much prayer you put into everything you do. And I know my dad, who gets mentioned on this podcast more than any other human being on earth, when he was struggling, you were the one he went to for prayer. And I think that says something too. And so I just want to thank you guys for everything you do around here, for your presence, for your, what did your friend say? God's little beam of sunlight in a box or something like that. That's right. I think that was the Spirit speaking through her to you. That's who you are. And I think only thing I would amend is like that box is always, there's no lid on that box because it just shines out all the time. And so we just love you so much, and we're so glad you're here.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending some time with us. I'm going to close in a quick prayer. Amy will get us out into the outro, and then we'll just go from there. So let's pray. God, we thank you so much for this day and for your blessings and the gifts you've given us. And Lord, I am so thankful for Kathy. And I just pray, Lord, that as much as she blesses us, that you would just bless her, guide her, teach her, lead her, heal her, protect her, be with her and her family, her husband, and fill them with your Spirit, Lord, and just continue to work your mercies and graces through them for the good of your people here at Inspire and in our whole community. I pray for our listeners, Lord. I pray that you bless them and keep them safe, healthy, and happy. Watch over them, guide them, and in all things, Lord, remind us of your mercy, of your grace, of your forgiveness, and all the good that you have in store for us, Lord. In Jesus' holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, guys, thanks so much for joining us today on our Dare to Care podcast. Don't forget to join us here at Inspire on Sundays at 9:15 and 10:45. And Wednesday evenings, we start at 5 with a meal, followed by classes for all and worship at 7 o'clock. See you later. Thanks so much.